Hi, Mark.
Hi Cam, how you doing?
I saw you adjusting your glasses
I
there. I was
was, I
just,
was.
I was just about to say, now that we are pod pros, we are completely ready. We're going to start the show off with a shout out, aren't we?
uh, are we? Yes, we are. Yes, sorry, you're talking about the patrons. Yeah, this is smooth stuff, guys. Okay, so we have a Patreon page, everybody. Please do check it out. You get a shout out at the end of each episode, which you'll hear at the end of this one. You'll also get early access to the pod episodes. It's only £2.50 a month, that is. So please do check it out. It's really good.
Good stuff. Thank you, Mark. Now, Mark, we like to do our research on news stories and things, and I just came across this story that I thought, particularly for those of you that are sort of in the Midlands and Leicester area, saw something
Mm.
on BBC News. A nice story sort of that came up. It says a blind photographer showcases work in memory of wife. Nicholas and Barbara Stanley were married for more than 49 years. And it says a photographer who is registered blind is holding an exhibition of his work in memory of his late wife. Nicholas Stanley, 73, is showcasing a selection of his photographs at Leicester Adult Education Centre in Belvoir Street, Leicester. And he goes on to say that his wife Barbara died in 2022 from motor neurone disease, and the problems with his vision were a result of multiple strokes that he suffered in 2014. And so he's showing this exhibition due to set to run for 2 weeks, with any funds being raised and split between the M&D Association and Stroke Association. So that is at the Leicester Adult Education Centre in Belvoir Street, Leicester. It'd be good if somebody can get down, if any of you listening and have time to get down there and support that.
Yeah, check it out, guys.
Okay, right, Mark. Got going to let you kick off with this one.
Yeah, it was just something that I mean, obviously different photographers come to business doing different things. One of the things that I kind of started with, I mean, as you know, I started at Venture. Also, I do some work for UCAM. I do some work for other wedding companies. I do my own weddings. I've got my own studio. I do a lot of different things. I do the graduations, and it was just something that came to me the other day because I was reading an article by Petapixel, and it kind of related to this a little bit. So I'm not actually going to talk about what they were talking about in their article, but it was the headline really. It was, "Do you know who owns your work? It's probably not you." I'm paraphrasing. I don't think it was quite like that, but I was thinking, oh yeah, because I've been a photographer for a long, long time, but I reckon a lot of the things I shoot is not actually owned by me.
Hmm.
So obviously, if I'm assisting you with the wedding, you own the copyright of that work, not me. If I'm shooting a wedding with another company, that's the same. Obviously, when I do my own studio work, that's mine, and also if I do my own weddings and stuff, that's mine. But any graduation stuff I do, that's not mine. And I do remember when I left Venture. Now, bear in mind, I've been at Venture for 10 years as a photographer, and you come to the end of it, and none of the work is mine. I've been working, I've created some good work there, none of it is actually mine. And you have to beg and plead to say, look, I want to take some work, portfolio, I've got to have something, to sort of reflect on from my time here. And it was very difficult to do. I mean, Venture are quite notorious for things like that. So you're not allowed to work as a photographer 6 months after you leave. Well, family photographer especially. I think they're a bit funny about other stuff. But yeah, so obviously that is general custom. I think it's the company that owns the work rather than you. But yeah, it was just a revelation I had that actually a lot of the work I don't actually own. Cam, it's a bit different for you, I guess.
It is, but saying that, it's quite vague, because I think if somebody say that I did a product shoot for a company,
Mm,
and they go off and use the images, and they use the images on a billboard, which I've seen, for
yeah.
example. Okay, and then you think, actually, hang on a minute, I shot that picture.
Mm,
Okay, now do I go back and say to that company, right, okay, you've used it on a billboard, you owe me X amount, or or is it a case that I do where I do a shoot for a client and I will hand them the images over and they can do whatever they want with them?
mm,
Okay, because in this day and age, you don't know where those images are going to be used and where they're going to
no.
go. They could be emailed to millions of people. They
Hmm.
could be used on a website. They could be using online advertising. They could be used on Instagram, on socials, TikTok, all of those things.
Hmm.
Okay, so your images, any of your images could go far and wide, which you're never aware of.
Mm.
Okay, and they probably are. And we're not just talking about product shoots. We're talking about, say, a wedding image. Say, if I shot a wedding image for
Mm.
my own client, for my own bride and groom that booked with me. Well, I know for a fact that those images are going to go all over social media, and then someone else is going to share those images.
Yeah, but
Then
you've allowed them to do that, though, haven't you?
yeah, I have. But then the makeup artist is going to share those same pictures. The cake person is going to share them. The people that
Yeah.
are doing fashion, people that are in the fashion world. Okay, so like a company hires a model to do some models to do a shoot, and the company or the photographers put these images onto social media, and then the models then share those images. In other words,
Yeah.
where does it stop? Where do you say at any point, hang on a minute, you're not allowed to share my image on Instagram, or you
Yeah.
can't do this with my image because I own the image? And people say,
Mm.
well, do you? And was it in your contract? And as self-employed photographers, I mean, seriously, someone is out there thinking, well, it should be in your contract. But come on, let's be serious, right, for a moment.
Mm.
How many people have got all of these things in their contract and have the time to put these things in
But
their contract?
how can you put those things in your contract? I mean, you could tell the clients they're not allowed to share it on social media, for example, and then if they do, you breach your contract, blah 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 blah. But how can you possibly stop? Let's say, like you say, it's the cake manufacturer at a wedding, and I know people we're talking about weddings again. I get it, um, but let's say the person who made the cake sees a picture that the bride and groom put up and then shares it. There's nothing stopping them from sharing it. Now, you might not know. You might not know that they've shared it. It might be on a story for 24 hours, and by the time you hear about it, it's not there anymore, and you've got no evidence. You're never going to be able to police it, even if it is
No,
in your contract. You can't police it. But nevertheless, you do own the work technically. You've
yeah,
just
but what
given
if,
permissions out.
and you can take it for any
Whereas,
type. Yeah, but
yeah,
sorry, I was going to jump in, but
mm,
let's talk about exactly what you were talking about. There is, let's say you go and shoot some pictures of a band, whether they're performing live or you go and do some sort of promo shots for them.
yeah,
Okay, who owns those pictures? Is it the band? Have the band paid you as a photographer? Well, what have they paid you for? And if the band shares your images as a photographer, you're going to think, hey, great, this is my work. The band's sharing these images. They're great. They're happy. Oh, look, they've used
mm,
it on their album cover. It's used as a thumbnail on Spotify or whatever.
yeah.
Where do you go from there? Do you say, right, okay, if you use, how, in other words, how's the client going to, what have you agreed with your client? Now, before so your answer is, when you say what have you agreed with your client, in most cases, here's the thing, okay, most of us as photographers, we're going to sort of say it verbally because we can't cover ourselves in a contract. It would cost huge amounts to put a contract that any good solicitor lawyer wouldn't be able to pick apart. Okay, so you'd have to end up saying, well, I need to get a contract made. Well, the contract could cost you hundreds, possibly thousands to get drawn up, so it's
But
not worth
what? Why
doing
are
the
you
job.
taking it? But why are you taking the pictures if you're not going to let them use it?
Well, that's just it. What I'm saying, well, that's the whole point. Why
Yeah.
why take some pictures and then say, hang on a minute, you can't do that because I own those photos if you're not going to let people use them?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I don't understand the
Yeah.
point here. I mean,
No, what I'm saying, no, you're saying, but who owns those pictures, aren't you? So if I own those
yeah.
pictures of the band, okay, I might still own those
Well,
pictures.
you own the copyright of them, definitely. So
Hmm.
none of those band members can say, "Oh, I took this picture and put it on self-timer," for example.
Hmm. Hmm.
However, you've got the copyright. You own the photos,
Hmm. Yeah.
but you have given permissions to them to use it. Now, if you said right in a contract or whatever it is, and I understand what you're saying about a contract for lawyers, but at the end of the day, no one will be bothered with a court case, so they just won't do it in a lot of cases, unless they're a big famous band, of course.
Yeah.
But let's say you go, right, yeah, you can use them for everything apart from album cover. And if you use it for an album cover, you're going to be charged this amount. And then they put it on the album cover anyway. You would have a case because it was in
Hmm.
writing, it'd be signed. I don't know how a lawyer could take that apart if they did something specifically opposite to what the contract stated. But that's not what we do, is it? We just we go, what are you going to use them for? Self promotion. This is what these words, all self promotion, blah, 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 blah. And it ends up on their album cover. Well, that technically is self promotion, isn't it? So, unless you stated, the opposite. I think what I'm really sort of talking about with venture is because I was shooting for a company at that time. I
Mm.
was employed to shoot for them. I have no copyright. I have nothing, not even authorship of the work, because technically Venture shot the photos, not Mark Denson. Does that make sense?
It does, but put yourself in their shoes for a moment. What if somebody was
Yeah.
shooting for you, right? You know, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
technically
Uh,
speaking, it's the right thing.
I
It's
get
the
it.
right
Yeah,
thing to
I
do,
do
isn't
get
it?
it.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
Just because you have shot it,
Mm.
it doesn't actually really mean that you're that that yes, you own that photo and you will always have a
Mm.
right to, you know, you can say, look, I shot that picture, but how many people have shot pictures in the past? And those pictures, how many musicians, say for example, you know, have what do you call them? Oh, musicians. They
Musicians?
yeah, no, they'll play on music, but they're not.
Session
They're only bought in
musicians.
session musicians.
Yeah,
That's
there we
it.
go.
Okay, right. Okay, so here's a classic. You know, the Rolling Stones song "Gimme Shelter."
Mm.
The female voice on that. I mean,
Yeah.
she was paid next to nothing. She was just paid for the gig,
Mm.
as it were, and that was
Mm.
it. And that song is, you know, has earned that band
Yeah, it's a little
a
bit
lot
different.
of money.
I mean, we
But she
always
was
use a
paid for
music.
it.
Yeah, we always use a music analogy. It's very
It's the same
different.
thing. No,
No,
it's
not
the same
really.
thing.
Even
No.
members of the band who didn't write the song will probably not get the consistent royalties that maybe Jagger or Richards, whoever wrote the song. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? You and the reason I say that is because you have session writers, don't you? So, you know, do you remember the band Four Non Blondes? We're talking about music. It's a photography
Yeah,
band. But
yeah,
anyway, remember the band Four Non Blondes?
yeah,
Right? You know, well, the singer from Four Non Blondes, do you remember Christina Aguilera's Beautiful?
yeah, yes, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
she
yeah.
wrote it. The singer from
Right.
Four Non Blondes wrote it for Christina Aguilera.
Oh, okay, right.
So the Four Non Blondes woman got a shed load of money for that,
Yeah,
even though she's only session because she wrote it. So
yeah,
it's a little different to
yeah,
what you were suggesting with Gimme Shelter then. But let's get this back to photography, shall we?
yeah. But well, the thing is, it's about your. It's still the same because it's about something that you've created, and that somebody has gone on and they have benefited financially, commercially from something that you created. That's really what we're
Yeah.
talking about. Whether it's a piece of music, a piece of art, a photo, whatever, it's the
Yeah, but there was
same thing.
creating the music and performing on the music, and there's different things.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's where I'm seeing the difference
Right.
there.
Okay. Right. Okay. No, I get that. But when it comes to imagery, maybe we just shouldn't be so precious about stuff these days. You do a job.
Maybe,
Otherwise, if you say to a band that I'll shoot these pictures for you, it's going to cost you X amount. However, here's a list of stipulations where you can, where you can't use these images. They're going to say, well, look, you know, that's not good with us. We want to use them on the front cover of our album. You're going to say, well, that's going to cost you an extra 50 quid or 5 grand. Okay,
mm,
whatever the figure is, they can say, oh, we'll go and find someone else then.
yeah, but then if that's a standard thing, then everyone's going to say that, aren't they? I don't know. I was just using that as an
Mm.
example. I don't know. I
Sure.
don't shoot a lot of bands, but
Yeah.
um, if you're going into something and you know what it's going to be used for, generally it's going to be used for that. So it doesn't matter. It's not about ownership. It's about that's the idea of doing a shoot in the first place.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and
Now,
you know, when I sell a USB to my clients at the studio, I
mm,
know they're going to stick it on social media. You
yeah.
know, I can't stipulate, no, you can't use it on social media. It's just for home use only and blah, 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 blah. You can't do that.
Mm,
You know, people want to share it and that's that basically. But I still own
mm,
the work.
mm. So
You know.
looking online, it says in the UK, the photographer who takes a picture owns a copyright to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is automatic and doesn't require any formal registration.
Sorry, say that again. Say that again.
Right. In the UK, the
Yeah.
photographer who takes a picture owns the copyright to it. And this
But
is automatic and doesn't require any formal registration. So you don't have to do anything.
no,
Take
no,
the
no.
picture.
But this is the different. This is what I'm saying. I
Mm,
was the photographer when I was shooting at Venture, but I don't
mm.
automatically own the work.
Well,
Venture
listen to
do.
right. Okay, so right. So it says it goes on to say the copyright usually lasts for the life of the photographer plus 70 years after their death.
Mm-hmm.
If someone uses a photo of you without your permission, you can contact them, ask the website operator to take the photo down, and consider taking legal action for copyright infringement.
Mm.
Okay. Now, I understand what you're saying. Okay, I'm just trying to separate it for a moment so people don't get
Yeah.
confused. That's the copyright thing there. Okay,
Mm.
now when you started working for Venture, did you sign a contract?
Oh yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Okay, now in that contract, there's going to be the small print, which you probably didn't read at the time.
No,
Okay, which
I
I'm not blaming you for not reading. I'm not
yeah,
saying that. Which most people probably just skimmed through, right? You it probably said in there that you as the photographer that the copyright remains with um the company.
adventure. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
And I probably did read that, and I understood that.
Yeah.
Um, but it is, and I get all that. I know. I'm not saying they've done anything particularly wrong here, but
No,
there's always
no.
something to think about. When I say I haven't done anything wrong, a lot of things like companies like that, and this is
Yeah.
just my experience, and other people might have different experiences of it. But you know, there's an element for me is right. There's a photographer who's now working for us. We're going to do everything we can to stop them working somewhere else. There is
Mm,
an element to that.
yeah.
That's how I felt about it anyway. I'm sure there's loads of people that will contradict what I've just said there, which is fine. There's always
Mm,
different stories. This is just my personal opinion. It's not really to making any accusations or anything like that.
yeah.
And I completely understand. Of course, if someone was working for me, which they do, I subcontract work out and I own the work. Of course I do. Of course I do. I get it. I get it. But I think it's just more like a thing to think about. I was 10 years at that, and you come out and you got nothing to show for it.
Right. Well, I've got
Uh,
some more information for you on this. Okay, here.
okay.
I'm looking it up. Okay. This is on the government website. It says, now we know this bit. The person who creates an image, the creator they put, will generally be the first owner of the copyright.
Mm,
However, now this is where you'll come in. However, what
mm,
you're talking about. However, there are various situations in which this is not necessarily the case. For photos, it may depend on when the photo was taken, as different rules may apply if the photograph was taken before 1989. Okay, so it goes on to say, if an image, this is the important part, if an image was created as part of the creator's employment, which is what you were talking about,
yeah.
rather than by a freelance creator, because you weren't a freelance creator at the
Nope.
time,
No, I was not.
the employer will generally own the copyright. It
Yeah.
is also possible that in instances where a person has arranged equipment and made artistic decisions prior to taking a photo, but wasn't the one to press the trigger, the person making the arrangements could own the copyright. An example of this could be where a photographer has made the creative choices in setting up a shot, but got an assistant to actually press the trigger. That's quite interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so the creator of an image may choose to allow a person or organizations to license the work on their behalf. So license the copyright directly themselves or assign transfer to copyright to another person. So basically, if you're working for a company, then the company owns the copyright and it owns the images, regardless of whether you were the one that set it up or did anything at all, unless you had prior agreement. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Mm.
And I think it's just people to, I don't know, just remember that. When you think you've got all this work and, because I've got loads of weddings and things on my hard drives, which
Mm.
I don't actually own
Mm.
because they were shot. And yeah, it's just a little warning, I guess.
Tell you where
Just,
the warning. So I was going to say, I'll tell you where the warning comes in, Mark. Let's say that I was working for somebody. No, say somebody was working here for me, and he or she take some images for a client or had been working whether with me for like a week or 10 years, doesn't really matter. And then that person leaves and goes off and sets up their own business. Fine, no problem at all. But what you find is that that person is using images on their own website or to promote their work that they shot while they were working for me. Now,
yeah.
they're not allowed to do that.
No, they're not.
Okay, so that's where those of you that are listening, you don't want to come unstuck with that.
Yeah.
That's where you have to be careful, because I would be within my rights to say, I'm sorry, but you have to take those images down. They're not your images. And the person says, well, no, I was a photographer. I have the copyright. You would if you were working for yourself.
Yeah.
But you were working for me on my behalf. The client paid me, and then I paid you as an employee. So,
yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
And it is a tricky one as well, just because I completely get it. The copyright is not theirs. But on the flip side, if you want to advertise your skill set, how else can you do it? If you're setting up if you've left the business and you're setting
Mm.
up your own business,
Mm.
how do you advertise your skill set?
Well, that's the difficult thing.
That's the difficult bit, isn't it? And
I
it's not,
tell you, yeah.
and I understand where an employer, because I see it from both sides, of course. I get it. I wouldn't want some photographer who's, worked for me using the work, Reach photography work on their website and saying it's theirs. No, even if they shot it. But on the flip side, from the photographer's point of view, well, I am working and I need to show what I can do to people. So how else can I show it? It's a tricky one.
Well, there is. I suppose there is a way, because if you go into let's say you go for a job interview, all you're doing it on Teams or Zoom these days, which I'm sure a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I guess there's nothing wrong with you saying, look, this was my previous employer or one of my employers, and here is their website, and I was the one that was responsible for shooting these images. This is my work on their websites. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that, is there? Think about it.
No, but if let's say, okay, let's just make a hypothetical scenario here. Let's say I graduated from college and I started working for you at the age of about 20. Okay. So 20 years old, pretty green. You taught me loads of stuff, as well as the stuff I learned from college. I worked on loads of stuff. When I did some weddings, got some really nice romantics, let's say. And then 5 years pass. I've obviously shot loads of stuff for you, which has been good. And then I go, you know what? I want to start my own business. I want to start my own wedding business now. I feel I've done my sort of apprenticeship, as it were. But I want to show prospective clients my work. But I can't, because it all belongs to you. Now, I guess with yourself, right? Because you're a reasonable guy, I guess we would have come up with some sort of agreement, right? But some employers don't want you to be in competition with them. So,
not if you say locally.
Okay, if you live in the same town,
within a certain radius, okay, but you might decide that you're going to move on and say, okay, right, I'm not going to advertise within I don't know, 100-mile radius of you.
Yeah.
Okay, but could we have this agreement? While I build up a name for myself. Say you could even put a time on it. Say for a year. Okay, then you've got to see how that employer or that person that you worked for, how approachable that person is. I think the right thing to do is to approach that person to say, you're right, it is a scenario. But then I was going to say, if that person says no, and you've got no way, you've got a leg to stand on, then the only thing you can do is, okay, you're going to do two things. You're either going to do it a little bit sneaky and say to a couple, look, here's the website that his company used to work for. This is my work, but don't tell them. Let's be honest on this on this podcast. That's what people are going to do. I can show you some of my work, but you mustn't tell anyone.
But the risk is that they'll then go to that website and choose them as a photographer. I mean, there's the risk, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You never know. Okay. Or the other thing that you have to do is, if the photographer says no, is got to do it the hard way. You've then just got to find work, and you've got to build up your own portfolio. Because how did that photographer that you work for build up his or her portfolio?
Yeah, but it's different times. That's the thing. You didn't have websites back then. And that's the difference, I think. Because actually, I reckon if we didn't have anything called a website, people would just be showing them that work, because it's a one-on-one, personal, in-person kind of work show, isn't it?
Of course. Yeah.
And I think, and because it's published online, I think that makes a massive difference.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it's an interesting one. It's an interesting
one. It is. Yes. Yeah. The murky world of sort of copyright, as we've touched on, and who owns your photos and everything. But anyway, Mark, let's grab a drink. I think we've got an interesting one coming up next.
Absolutely.
Right, Mark. Now I have got here a Canon R6.
Yes.
Lovely Canon R6. Amazing camera.
Yeah.
And next to it, I have got Sony A7 IV.
Boo.
This is new.
Not really. Okay. I'm only joking.
I only had this. I only got this a couple of weeks ago. Got it for to shoot video, and it's a lovely camera. Something new that Sony did on their
put on the screen.
Camera. Upgraded from the I was because I had
there we
something
go.
open that was behind it. There we go. Okay, lovely A7, Sony A7 IV, beautiful camera. Okay, now,
Okay.
now we wanted to talk because again, this sort of sort of came up from an article that we saw, didn't we?
Yeah.
About how camera brands use different terms and for their features in their camera, and how some things aren't or could be described better, shall we say? Okay.
Yes.
My biggest gripe, we'll jump straight into it, is Canon use their own terminology, don't they? Okay.
Yeah.
So we know that Nikon, Sony, and the other camera manufacturers, they want to if they want to assign something called shutter priority, they'll refer to it as an S.
Yeah.
Okay.
As it should be.
Aperture is A. Okay, but Canon conveniently don't do that. They have their own language, don't they?
They do.
Okay. So
Which is ridiculous.
It is. So shutter is called a TV, time value.
TV,
which is,
value.
Yeah, which is, which does relate to it.
I mean, it makes sense, I guess.
Shutter. It does, yeah. And aperture is AV. Okay.
Yeah, so aperture value, is that?
Aperture value.
Yeah. Okay.
Really thought about that one, didn't they?
They did.
I'd like to know what, I mean, was it a copyright thing or something? Does somebody own S and A for aperture?
Well, what does the Sony camera have?
S and A.
Yeah. Or what did Nikon have?
S and A.
Well, then it can't be a copyright.
No, it can't be a copyright. Yeah. So did Canon do this just to be different?
Oh, Canon did it just to be Canon, didn't they?
We've not done any research on this.
Okay, no, we are
why, and it's probably on there, and I'm sure it's been.
Maybe we should speak to Jamie about it. Let's send an email to Jamie and see if she can answer.
Yeah, let's do that one day. Let's find out why. Let's see if anyone at Canon can answer that question for us.
Yes, please.
And we're going to follow up on that. Okay.
Yes.
So that's one of those things. Now,
but why did they do time value and not shutter value? Why wasn't it SV? I mean, we don't know, do we?
Can't answer. That's right. Yeah. Well, TV does give you a bit of a clue at least what it relates to.
What? SV doesn't. I mean, S and A, you just go straight away. Whether it's got the V next to it or not, you just S and A, right?
Yeah, I know. But there we go. So, and other than that, I think in most cases the buttons they've got manual is manual, okay, with an M, okay, which is lucky, and program, okay, is with a P. So kept those the same.
You see, I'm surprised they didn't call that TV program.
Yeah, and what about manual? What could they have called manual? Something DIY.
DIY.
DIY. Okay.
Do it yourself, mate.
Wouldn't that be pretty cool?
Yeah.
Call it DIY. If I was going to now, launch a camera brand, I would change manual to DIY.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. And I would change S and SV to, as you said it, Mark, to SV, shutter value.
Yeah, SV.
Right. Or even SP, shutter priority. Just put SP, AP, aperture priority.
Yeah.
Call it out for what it is. Yeah. Now that's where the descriptions are sort of quite interesting, because again, this article that we were reading was quite interesting, because I love the conclusion. In the conclusion, they put something like, when you're and I'm just opening up the Sony menu, because we've already mentioned this many times, almost since the show started, how Sony are definitely have the most confusing menu that's out there. Yeah. We know that. Okay. And
we've said it enough.
When you start to go into their menu systems, and you see, I'm turning off the Sony because I'm going to go straight into Canon, because I was going to start with the Sony, but it's too damn confusing. Okay, now if I go into the Canon menu, if I can find the menu button.
Yeah.
See, now look, I've gone completely blank here.
Oh my word, the pressure's getting to him, everybody. Blimey.
There it is. Yeah. It's there, top left. I use it all the time.
Find it. Info or menu or whatever it's
okay,
called.
menu. It says menu there. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm just going to go through a few things here on this. Okay, lovely touch screen. Okay, let's call out some of the things on here. Okay, so now here's another thing with Canon. Okay, they have their image quality. and
Yes.
their image quality is a pain compared to Nikon's, because Nikon, from what I remember, they have basic, they have fine, and they have high, don't they?
Something like that.
And raw. Okay,
And,
which is great. Basic is basic. Fine. I think they have medium as well. I can't remember. Okay, but no, Canon don't do this.
no,
Canon
no, no, no.
they give you S2, S1, S1. Yeah. In fact, I've got two S1s: S2, S1, S1, and medium, large, large. Yeah, there's two mediums, two larges, and two S1s. But what they do is they give you this little diagram. This
Yeah, it's like a Tetris
like
piece, doesn't it?
It's like yes, it does. It's okay. That tells you that there's two larges, and one has a lovely curve, and the large has a lovely curve, and the other large has the curve with two little blocks missing from it to say it's slightly lower quality.
Yeah.
Confusing? Yes. It is confusing. Okay. And of course, they look to have two RAWs. Okay. So they have three small settings. Okay. Do away with all of this, Canon. Okay. Why don't you just call it basic, but even basic plus?
Yeah.
Okay. And then medium plus, and then large plus. Okay.
These are the JPEG functions, aren't they? I mean, these are all JPEGs.
These are the JPEGs. That's right. Yes, and some people do shoot JPEGs rather than RAW all the time. Okay. Now, looking at other things in their menu system, just going through it. Auto. Now, if I don't know anything, and I don't know what this is, okay, going through their menu system, the auto lighting optimizer. Okay, can you tell me what the auto lighting optimizer is, Mark? I've got it disabled. It's turned off.
No idea. Without, I could hazard a guess if I was looking at it, but and I can get mine. It's just here.
Okay, right. So going into now, okay, you got your white balance, AWB, auto white balance. Okay, that's very handy. Custom white balance, yep, that's pretty handy as well. Multiple exposure, you can enable it, disable it. And you've got your touch shutter, which I always find a little bit confusing. Exposure simulation, that can sometimes be a little bit.
The touch shutter annoys me because you turn it off and it comes back on again. I swear.
Yes, it does. You're right there. Okay, external speed light control, HDR PQ settings. Tell us what they are. Okay.
Well, it's HDR, isn't it? High dynamic range.
It is, but the thing is, I think they make it. But it's when you go into the menu, it becomes even more confusing. HDR assist display shooting, HDR assist display payback, HDR peak. Just make it simple. So I think what the problem with this though is, Mark, is people ignore them, so they don't use them. They don't start looking at what these things can actually do for you. And Sony, as I said, they make it even more confusing.
Well, come on, what do Sony call things then? I mean,
I'm trying to even go into pixel mapping, auto pixel mapping. Okay, okay, I'm in their video mode at the moment, so let's just go into their camera mode for a moment here. Okay, and you see, I don't even know because I'm actually because I'm in video mode at the moment. So let's flick on their menu here, okay, and you've got their different menu systems, and what that means. See, I'm afraid here that I'll go in and adjust something that I shouldn't be adjusting.
I mean, I think there's a couple of things to just think about here, though. I mean, if there's a menu system, whether it's easy or complicated, there's going to be things in there you don't know what they do. So there is. Are we doing just now the typical bloke thing about not looking at the instructions? I mean, is that what we're doing here? Which I think is a bit different to the let's name shutter speed priority TV.
Yeah, I think we are. I think they'll just say, well, why don't you look up what it is? Yeah. I think they could sometimes give them better descriptions. I mean, the article that we were looking at gave a really good example of this, okay? Because they say that if you were driving a car, and here it is, okay? It's all a bit of tongue in cheek. However, if you drive a car, you expect the steering wheel to be called steering wheel and not a directional control interface. When it rains, we switch on the wipers and not the excess visual inhibiting water removal system. Then when we apply the anti-lock brakes, we are not activating the hydraulic motion inhibitor AI. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So it would be good. I mean, what this article says, it says, but for the photographic, for both education and understandability, standardizing the names of functions can only be a good thing. It says why? Besides being an art, digital photography is a branch of physics. So, just like any science, the description should be precise and universal. We should
Mhm.
know from the name what each of us is talking about, no matter what brand we are handling.
Well,
So,
yeah, I get that. I mean, but there's been issues like this all along. We always talk about, you zoom a different way between Nikon and Canon, that's to stop you from going to the other brand. And I guess some of this is that as well. But we all say ISO these days, don't we? ISO, for those who never used film, it was a film rating, wasn't it? We got 200, 300, 400, that's where, well, 200, 400, and that's where you got it from on the digital cameras now. But it used to be called, do you remember what it used to be called?
no.
ISO?
ASA.
ASA. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember what
Why?
it stands for. Do you know what it stands for?
No, I don't know what either of them stands for. I know
Okay,
what they
so
do.
I shall tell you, right? ISO stands for International Standards Organization, and
Which,
ASA stands for American Standards Association. I
right.
just know. I just know.
Okay. Well, okay. Fair enough.
International Standards Organization. And you know what? When I'm doing my teaching and I get a class and I'll say, right, we're going to talk about ISO. And when I start talking about, and I can guarantee you that I will hear the phrase instead of ISO, iOS more than ISO. The number of them that
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I adjusted the iOS." No, it's not.
No, it's not the
not Apple.
iOS. It's not an
Right.
Apple software.
Okay. Now, the other thing, and I like this again in this article, which is great because this was part of my point. I was saying that I think what happens with these phrases is they sound so confusing and technical that we don't bother going in to look at them, and they could really help
Mm,
us. But it says
mm.
here, it says somebody wrote in. This is a comment. It says this is to do with the article. I believe that this is just another reason why the younger generation prefers cell phone photography. The learning curve in professional photography isn't always technical, it's user experience. Cell phones, mobile phones, guide you through the process to create better images. And this is true. My 60-year-old mother just bought us a Canon. She asked how to transfer the image to her phone. She was shocked that a brand new camera model takes dozens of clicks and setups to transfer the photo to her phone. This type of user experience will continue to erode the future of photography equipment, especially as computational and digital computer learning photography continues to grow. So it's true. I mean, if I did want to send a picture from my camera to my phone, it should be a hell of a lot easier than it is,
Agreed. No, I agree with that.
especially in this day and age.
Should
You
just be
know,
a button. I
if
guess the main thing about transferring images off to your camera or whatever relies on a signal. And the difference with a phone is a signal. That's what a
mm,
phone is primarily for. So it's a bit unfair comparison in that respect because, of course, it's easy just to send an image on WhatsApp that you've taken off your phone because it's a phone. It's connected to the internet constantly, or it's connected to a mobile phone mast somewhere.
so why
Cameras
don't
aren't.
camera? Well, why not? Why
Because
can't
you'd have
camera
to,
manufacturers make it easier? Why can't you
because you'd
put
have to buy
in
a SIM card for it. You'd have to have a
what?
monthly
what
payment thing
well,
for it,
then
like
do
you do
it.
with your phone.
Well, then
Well,
do it.
yeah, but who wants to do that?
I, I bet you a lot of photographers would. I can guarantee photojournalists, for example, think, right, click, 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 bang, 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 off it goes. They don't need to connect it to a laptop or try and do this because they're already sending it from their phone. Why
Yeah,
don't
but you don't.
Nikon camera? Sorry, Mark, I'm on one. Nikon,
Yeah,
Canon, Sony. I'm calling out here. The next thing that you need to put on your cameras that's going to make it worth a real. When we talk about
but you
why do
can do
camera
it. You can do it with
manufacturers
your R6,
upgrade?
Cam.
No, I know I can, but it's not easy. It's not
No, because you got to
straightforward.
turn on the Wi-Fi and you got to give it, and it has its own Wi-Fi thing, and then you got to do that because you got to do that part of it.
I know,
Whereas the
but I don't want
phone
to.
is constantly on.
Yeah, but
That's
I
the
don't want to do
difference.
that. Why don't they just put it in, right? Your SIM card into your phone. It's if I want to, it's connected permanently. If I want to pay the monthly fee, I can do. Okay. And
I
why
guess the
can't I
thing to
just send it?
do is, I
Now,
guess the thing to do would be able to do a hotspot with your camera. I think that would be the fix.
yeah, okay, right. Okay,
That
yes, you
would
could
be
do
the
that. I'm
fix.
talking about something that's just quick, just done. So I've shot the images. I'm just going to quickly send it across. Okay, there's only a certain file size that you can send, like you could anyway. Okay, so I'm
I'm
talking
guessing
about
you can't
maybe
already do
you
that.
you just send you can send one image. It's a low quality, maybe no more than say 2 meg or something like that. It could be a test image that you just want to send to a client. You know what I've done in the past, Mark? I've actually taken a picture of the back of my phone and sent that to the client to say this is what it looks like because it's the easiest and quickest way to do it.
Yes, but like I say, it's because your phone is made for that purpose. Your phone is made to communicate with people.
Yeah, but don't.
In a technical way. Also, yeah, you can communicate your ideas through your imagery, blah
That's
blah
what
blah.
I was going to say.
But yeah. But I'm talking about physically communication rather than metaphorical communication. That's what phones are for. That's why they were
Okay,
made in the first place. That's
so
not what cameras do. And you would have
it,
to have you'd have to have a subscription to Vodafone or whatever, or EE or whatever it is, in
in a
order for
recent
that to work.
in a recent episode, did we not say camera manufacturers, you're releasing the Mark One and the Mark Two? What's the point in releasing something quickly? Why are you doing that? Why release them so soon? What are the upgrades? Are they worth upgrading to whatever? But there you go. Your next upgrade. Can you imagine Nikon released the Z10? In fact, forget the Z10. Let's just jump from the Z9 straight to the Z11. They've missed the 10 altogether, and everyone will ask the question, why was there no Z10? Because that's the sort of thing they do, okay? There was never a Z10. So we went straight from the Z9 Mark III, if there is a Z9 Mark III, straight to the Z11. The Z11 now has everything that the Z9 Mark III had. But what it's now also got, it's got SIM card in it. Now, can you imagine how popular that would be?
I don't know. Depends how expensive the SIM card part is.
It would be hugely as a normal price of a mobile.
But that's expensive.
So what? But if people want to pay it, they have the choice.
20 quid a month. No, but that's awful, because then when your competitors are paying for it, then you've got to pay for it. And it's
that's even more reason they say they've got you. They've got
but
you.
For their point of view, it is. But we, the punters, don't really want that. Blimey. Okay. We pay what? Our subscriptions to Photoshop and subscriptions to online galleries and all these other things. I don't want to pay another one.
Okay, so no, we don't. But we're moving forward with technology. Okay, now Nikon, why don't you do the here is I'm going to see which one, who's listening. Canon, Nikon, Sony, Leica, could be any of them. Okay, are you listening? Okay, because this is what I think that you should do. This is your chance to get to enter the mobile market. Okay, what you do is you release.
What you doing? What you doing?
The Nikon M1. Okay, that's Nikon's first mobile phone. Call it M for mobile. Okay, let's call it Nikon. The Nikon M1. That's it. And they've got a Nikon mobile phone. But now what they're doing is they're releasing the Nikon Z10 Mark One. Okay, which incorporates the features of the mobile phone.
You don't need to do that.
The Z10 now has a SIM card, but now Nikon have also now got you, like Apple do, they've got you into the phone. They've got you into the laptop. Nikon have now got you sewn up on your mobile phone because it ties in with your camera. I mean, put me in front of the Nikon team and I'll pitch this idea to Nikon and Canon and to Sony and see which one takes it first.
Oh, my word. I mean, they're probably developing it anyway, but we don't. I don't want another subscription. I do not want another subscription. Thank you. So I'd rather just make a hotspot capability. So your camera can go on your hotspot and just do it that way. That's all we need, guys.
You don't have to, Mark. You don't have to.
All you need is a button on the camera that's solely for that. Switch it on and you're gone. That's it. That's fine.
But you don't need to, Mark, because if you don't want to, you don't have to. But those people that are out there can say, look at this. I've got the Nikon M1 mobile phone.
And the rest of us will have to.
Z10. You have to move forward. But
I'm all for progress. But when
you don't have to.
Generally, progress, but it basically means to me something's going to be slower and more complicated, or it's going to cost me money.
But that's just the way it is.
No.
Nikon are not going to think, oh, it's going to cost people money. They're going to be thinking, this is going to cost people money.
Not.
This is.
I know they're not. Yeah, but no, it's.
I don't know where
Nikon.
I can't remember what we were talking about.
We were talking about stupid things on TVs and things like that. We've massively gone off on a tangent. So yeah, where were we?
Okay,
we need to wrap this up soon.
We need to wrap it up. Okay, but put me in front of that. I'll pitch it. I'll pitch this idea. Honestly, it's going to be amazing. Talk about it. We're talking about the right name for it. The Nikon M1, the Nikon Mobile One.
No.
How good is that?
No,
all right, guys.
It's not.
Let's give a shout out to our patrons.
Well, before we do that, we've been having a bit of a chat, haven't we, off air, and we're going to try something new next episode. Just a little bit of a format change, nothing too drastic, but so do look forward to that. It's just a little thing, nothing like groundbreaking or anything, but it should be cool. Yeah. So patrons, go for it, Cam.
Okay, right. So Carl Shervill, Frank
Yeah.
Case, Amira
Uh-huh.
Zainab.
Uh-huh.
You're gonna have to do the rest.
Nick Payne, Rob Percy, and Craig Chuck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And as we always say, it's less than a pint of beer. It should be.
Yes.
It's in the
Should be
price of
to
a
be.
pint of beer.
Yeah, it absolutely should be. To be fair.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Although I paid a considerable amount for a double espresso today at a service station Costa. So,
Oh yeah.
I can't remember how much it was, but it was ridiculous. It's about £4.80 or something.
What? Okay.
Yeah, they had me. I'd already ordered it and I needed it. So.
I saw him coming. Anyway, guys, yeah, £2.50. Check it out. Really cool.
Cheers, guys.
Take it easy. Bye bye.